Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Eddie. Welcome to Ideas with a Verdict. And today I want to discuss the topic of abortion. This is definitely a hot button um, social issue. It gets everyone kind of riled up in their feelings, but I feel like a lot of the times people kind of just hold on to slogans. They don't necessarily have an in-depth understanding of their arguments. They don't necessarily know how to rationalize their positions. So I just want to kind of propose some fundamental questions, and I want to think through these things nice and slow. And I'm going to dedicate a couple videos to this particular social issue. So I want to kick it off by asking just a few fundamental questions that need to be addressed before we get into the further details of this social issue. So the first one is, do human beings have intrinsic moral value? Now, what's intrinsic moral value? This simply means that human beings are ends in themselves. They're not means to an end. Something like a sponge doesn't have value in itself. It serves as a means to an end. Like when I want to wash my car, I take the sponge, I dip it in a bucket, and I wash my car. And then I just toss it to the side. It's a means to an end. It doesn't have intrinsic moral value. But human beings are different. Human beings are ends in themselves. This is why things like the Jim Crow South was intrinsically wrong, was morally evil. The Holocaust was morally evil. Slavery was morally evil, right? We look at these things and we say, hey, you're using humans as a means to an end. This is wrong. So it doesn't matter about the individuals who supported, these immoral systems. So it's regardless of our opinion that human beings have this natural intrinsic moral value, right? So I think we all can agree on that, right? That human beings have intrinsic moral value. Why? Because they are ends within themselves. They are not means to an end. If they were, there's nothing wrong with slavery or the Holocaust. But we all know, we recognize that the Holocaust was wrong. We know slavery was wrong. Child sex abuse is wrong. Sexually assaulting individuals is wrong. Why? Because human beings have intrinsic moral value. Okay, so we addressed that. The next question I want to address is, when a woman is pregnant, the fetus that's inside of her that's developing, is it human? Well, I think here we could stick to the science. At the moment of conception, we have a sperm and an egg that comes together, attaches to the uterus. It's an embryo. There's implantation. At this point, it's a new distinct organism. It has human DNA, it has human parents, has the human genome. All of its traits are determined in that moment. The eye color, hair color. And from the moment of conception all the way to old age, that is simply going through different stages of life. There is no point that you can point to during that time from conception to old age and say, hey, this organism is not human. Not if you're sticking to science. The science is clear on this. So from conception, right? So when I was an embryo and I was conceived, I'm the same human individual that I was just simply in a different stage of life. There's nothing different. All the DNA, everything was the same. I just needed time to grow up until now. So we agree on that, right? The science is clear on that, right? It logically follows that, yes, a fetus is indeed human. For someone to say that the human fetus is not human is to be going outside of the field of science at this point, and it's simply arbitrary. Now you're stepping into philosophy. So for stick to the science, it's clear. The scientific evidence is clear that when there's conception, that is human, and from conception to old age, it's the same organism and is clearly human. So we established that humans have intrinsic moral value. We also established, per the science, that a fetus inside a woman's body is human. Now, this is very important. This sets the foundation as we get further into abortion. I want to tie into something else. I want to get into rights. I think a lot of people kind of get confused on what a right is. They think if you need something and something is important, that you have a right to it. That's not how rights work, right? So we need to make a distinction, right? So we have legal rights, right? Your legal rights would be like civil rights, your right to vote, things like that, your civil rights, right to, social services, things like that. But um, those come after your fundamental rights. The reason why we have civil rights and the reason why civil rights are so important is because they're protecting even more sacred fundamental rights. This is what I will call natural rights. So your civil rights are like your legal rights, but your natural rights are like your right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's why the founding fathers had that in the Declaration, right? And these rights are self-evident, endowed by our Creator. They're inalienable. Like, the government protects your natural rights. They don't give them to you, right? So this is why when governments had things that were legal, that were immoral, we knew they were immoral because they violated natural rights. Take something like slavery. For you to deny the dignity of a human being, again, because human beings have intrinsic moral value, this is immoral. And this is why individuals fought to, reverse that and to make that illegal because it was wrong. This is why we fought so hard historically for civil rights. Why? Because we have fundamental rights, and those civil rights stem from there. So the foundation is your right to life, right? That sets the tone for your other rights, your civil rights, your legal rights. They stem from the fact that you have intrinsic moral value and that you have these natural rights. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about something like healthcare, right? So we determine what a legal right is and what a natural right is, right? So you take something like healthcare, which I would agree, healthcare is very important, and I wish everyone in the world could have quality healthcare, but you don't have a right to healthcare. Now, what I mean by that is your rights always end when someone else's rights begin, right? So it doesn't follow that I have a right to someone else's services, right? You don't have a right to a doctor's services. This is why we have socioeconomic systems, and this is why the free market is so effective, right? Because it gives you quality, competition. It's voluntary, right? I'm gonna provide this service at a low cost because my competitor is charging more, and you need my service, right? I'm gonna provide you goods and services. That's what the economy is for, right? So this is why when you go out and you're shopping for bread, you're gonna go to the place that gives you quality bread, but also affordable bread, right? You don't have a right to go to a restaurant because you need to eat and say, hey, serve me food and I want it for free. This is my right. No, you don't have a right to someone else's service, right? So they have a business and they're trying to, pay their bills and everything like that. And you don't have a right to their labor. You can pay for it and it has to be voluntary. This is why the free market, when exercised properly, is the most effective socioeconomic system known to mankind. So those are just some things I want to just go over. I think this is important when we talk about the topic of abortion, right? So we established that, yes, that human beings, regardless of race, gender, the way you express yourself sexually, that human beings have intrinsic moral value. Why? Because human beings are ends within themselves. They're not means to an end. This is why we reject things like slavery, the Holocaust. It's why these things were evil. It's regardless of individuals' opinions. We also established, per the science, that a fetus in a woman's womb is human. The science is crystal clear on this, right? So humans have intrinsic moral value. The fetus is clearly human per the science. We also made a distinction between fundamental natural rights, the right to life, the right to liberty, the pursuit of happiness. These are fundamental rights, and your civil rights and your legal rights stem from those. So the government protects your natural rights, which are already given to you by virtue of being an intrinsic, by virtue of you being a human being with intrinsic moral value. The government's job is to protect those rights. And the legal rights that they give you are also to protect those natural rights that are so fundamental that we need to always fight to protect, right? So let me know what you guys think. Just wanted to ask these questions and think through these. If you disagree with anything that I said, please comment, let me know. I'm more than willing to engage in a dialogue with you. I love, having these types of conversations. I think it's important to just have a nice, rational, logical conversation. But I think this kind of sets the tone before we get further into the topic, right? If we all recognize that human beings have intrinsic moral value, that fetuses are human, we understand what natural rights are, and that they should be protected at all cost. This is significant. This sets the foundation when we get into the arguments presented from people who are pro-choice that say things like "my body, my choice" and everything like that. Because per the science, we know that abortion involves two human persons, not just one. We also set the foundation that your rights stop when someone else's rights begin. So just marinate on that, think about that. Let me know what you think, if you agree, if you disagree, subscribe, like, and I'll make a follow-up video and we'll get deeper into this topic. Thank you.